Hello everyone and welcome to Task 9 where we will be investigating the role of evaluation in problem-based learning. In Task 8 we discuss the inclusion of alternative methods of assessment, and Task 9 will focus on what that actually looks like in the classroom so that you can make a more effective plan for it. Oftentimes when asked, students who loved or were successful in school are often the ones that chose to be a teacher. I've heard some people say that students are never motivated by grades. I know for me it was a huge motivational factor. Maybe it goes further back to my perfectionist tendencies, but I could and can make myself study anything because I like the feeling of seeing that 100 on an evaluation. Now, not everyone is going to be motivated in the same way that I am. But when you ask very many teachers, generally it comes back to a love of learning and great experiences in school or being a successful student. Students and teachers alike generally gauge their success in terms of a grade. We start out in kindergarten knowing we did a good job by a high grade or realizing areas needing improvement by a lower grade. Because teachers are constantly evaluating students either formatively or formally, teachers tend to love tests. Maybe not the state standardized tests, but at least the ones that tell us if we're doing a good job of teaching our students. Traditional testing provides an instant gratification and feedback. If all students did an amazing job on the test, it either means you are a teaching superstar or maybe you didn't make it rigorous enough. If all your students did really poorly across the board, you know that the teaching methods used were not effective or that students were not prepared by either a lack of studying or you included questions that were too challenging. Tests give us actionable intel to direct our future instruction simply by comparing student answers to the answer key. These answer keys are a godsend to a time-strapped teacher, and it gives us an easy way to determine if students have met the learning outcome. However, when enacting problem-based learning, traditional evaluations will not work to measure metacognitive growth or the student's ability to apply problem-solving strategies to unfamiliar scenarios. This is where those alternative methods of assessment come in. When we're trying to establish development of skills, we are looking for growth. The process takes longer and it will look different for each student. Therefore, objectively evaluating whether or not a student's thought processes are developing in a positive direction can seem like a daunting task. It is hard to see what is going on in a student's mind. Sometimes it's better that we just don't know. But when using the problem-based learning framework, we have to plan assessments that dive into this abyss. Another consideration is that when we are presenting our students with engaging and relevant problems, there is no right answer. Hence, no answer key. But coming to the same conclusion is not the big idea that we are looking for students to achieve. This process will have many different avenues, and because we are facilitating students to construct their own knowledge, they are certain to take different routes and come to a variety of conclusions. With that said, you cannot truly evaluate a student's problem-solving abilities with closed-ended questions. Remember, we're not looking for regurgitation of facts. We are trying to get a glimpse into whether or not our students' metacognitive abilities are developing in a positive manner. Student answers will tend to be more narrative because you will be looking for how the student arrived at their conclusion, what they found in the process to justify that conclusion. We need to know if students were able to identify missing information that they needed and if and how they found it. We are asking students to identify the goal. Where do they want to go? Plan how to get there and implement that plan of adventure and end up at their predetermined destination. We have to plan for student answers to be highly varied, and that is okay. It can be challenging and you might wonder how in the world they came to that conclusion, but it's imperative to evaluate student responses with a very open mind. Remember, somewhere in their reasoning, this made sense. You have to think about their thinking, not yours. And when you still can't see the route they planned out, Ask them to walk you through it. You might be surprised. Sometimes when students know that you're not looking for a single right answer, their creativity and out-of-the-box thinking is nothing short of incredible. Let's look at an example from my science class. When presented the scenario, many people believe that gene editing could eradicate diseases caused by genetic mutation. Is it plausible and cost-effective to implement a mandate that all embryos undergo genetic testing and treatment if necessary? How would you justify your answers to expecting parents? Now remember, none of these answers are wrong. And even for students who came to the same conclusion on whether the mandate is appropriate, their justifications for the families were different. All different. The first example answer is that no, it's not cost effective and it should not be mandated, but it should only be offered as a self-pay option for expecting parents. The second answer I got, again without the justifications because there were far too many to count, was that it's not cost effective for every fetus to undergo genetic testing, but it should be mandated for all high-risk pregnancies or parents known to have or carry a genetic mutation associated with an inherited disease. The third answer I got was that the test itself is not cost effective, but it should be mandated because the cost of testing and treatment is less than the treatment required over the lifetime of a child with an inherited disease. And the last one I got was that the cost-benefit ratio is inconsequential due to the ethical obligation of providing each individual with an increased quality and length of life. That's quite a variety. In order to answer this question, students had to understand how the genetic testing is conducted. Is there any risk to mom or baby? What does the test cost and how long does it take? How accurate is the test and treatment? How many infants are affected by inheritable diseases caused by genetic mutations? And even consider the ethical implications of such a mandate. I even had one student who researched the legal implications of mandating a medical test to be rendered and how and if students could opt out of that procedure. I did not tell the students that they would have to answer all of those questions, but in order to present a justifiable opinion to expecting parents, they have to consider each of these things. When planning an assessment using problem-based learning, establishing a learning environment where uniqueness and creativity of thought processes are celebrated is critical to harness the maximum effectiveness of the learning strategy. Happy planning.